Rain hammered against the cracked apartment windows as Mia Carter pressed a trembling hand against her daughter, Lily's burning forehead. Listening to the shallow breaths of the sick 7-year-old as midnight crept across the city, thunder rolled in the distance like an omen, but the only sound she heard clearly was her husband Daniel's voice, echoing from memory, sharp and cutting in a way she still couldn't believe had come from the man she married. Mia pulled the thin blanket higher over Lily, whispering comforting words even though she herself felt anything but comfort, because mere hours ago her entire life had been ripped apart by Daniel's rage. She sat on the edge of the creaking bed replaying every detail of the night, wondering how fast someone's heart could shatter and still keep beating. It started when she came home from the meeting, the one she had prepared for months, maybe even her whole life without realizing it, because she had been given a chance to pitch her idea. Medical device designed to make diagnostics easier for underfunded hospitals to a global tech giant. She walked into the house glowing with hope, ready to surprise Daniel with the news, believing naively that he would be proud of her, but instead she found him sitting in the kitchen staring at a hospital bill he had opened without asking, the one she had been trying to negotiate with charity programs because Lily's condition was worsening again. He didn't understand that she had kept it from him because she didn't want to stress him more, but Daniel saw it as betrayal. He accused her of hiding things, of being irresponsible, of letting the child's illness become a burden. His voice rose, harsh and unfamiliar, and she tried to calm him, tried to explain that the meeting had gone incredibly well and that there was something big happening, something that might change everything, but he didn't let her finish. He began shouting about money and inconvenience and how he'd had enough of everything falling apart around him. And before she could process what was happening, he grabbed her suitcase from the closet, stuffed her clothes inside without care, marched to Lily's room and told her to get up, that they were leaving. She froze in shock, holding Lily close as he dragged the suitcase to the door, yelling that he was done supporting a child that wasn't even biologically his, a sentence that hit her like a knife to the ribs because she had always known he struggled with resentment, but never imagined he would weaponize it. She begged him to stop, begged him to look at Lily's face, at her small shivering body fighting a fever no child should fight alone, but his anger blinded him. He shoved the suitcase outside and told them both to get out, and then he slammed the door, leaving Mia standing barefoot in the rain, clutching Lily in her arms as thunder cracked open the sky. She walked 4 blocks until her legs trembled, ending up at the old apartment she once lived in before marriage, a place she had kept the key to only because she never made time to return it. It was dusty, cold, and nearly empty, but it was shelter. Lily's fever had worsened by then, and Mia couldn't decide whether to cry or collapse as she laid the child down and tried to calm her. And yet, even as her world felt like it was burning, something unbelievable happened. Her phone vibrated. It was an email from the company she had pitched to earlier that day, a message asking her to check the digital contract attached and confirm receipt. She opened it with trembling fingers, expecting a rejection or a polite "we'll contact you later." But instead she found a document so surreal that she blinked repeatedly to be sure she was reading correctly. They had accepted her proposal. More than accepted, they wanted her as the lead innovator for a global rollout worth $50 billion. $50 billion, not $5 million, not $50 million, billion. She stared at the number as if it were a hallucination, and the room seemed to tilt around her. A contract so massive that it would alter the medical world, that would change her life and Lily's future forever. Her idea to use microimaging tech with AI-driven data to create universal low-cost diagnostic scanners had been chosen as the core of their next global health expansion. And she, Mia Carter, the woman Daniel just threw into the storm, had just become one of the most important innovators in the world overnight. She let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob, because fate had a cruel sense of timing. She signed the contract with shaking hands, knowing she needed the upfront money desperately for Lily's treatment. Within minutes, the deposit notification hit her phone, more money than she had ever seen in her life. But there was no joy, not yet. She touched Lily's forehead again, heart pounding when she felt the heat rise another degree. She grabbed her coat, wrapped Lily tightly, and rushed down the stairs to find help. Rain still poured, but she didn't care. She stood at the curb waiting for a taxi until one finally stopped, the driver's eyes widening when he saw the child in her arms. "Hospital?" she gasped. "Please?" The man nodded without hesitation and sped through the rain-soaked streets while Mia held Lily's small hand and whispered, "Stay with me, baby. Stay with me, please." At the hospital, the staff rushed Lily into an exam room. Time blurred. Nurses moved quickly. Doctors examined her. Machines beeped. And Mia stood in the corner, feeling like her soul was being squeezed into dust. After what felt like an eternity, a doctor approached her with a tired but gentle expression and said they were stabilizing her, that they needed to run tests, that they suspected complications from her immune disorder, but they would do everything they could. Mia nodded, barely able to speak. She sat in the hallway, drenched and shaking, when an unexpected figure suddenly appeared at the far end, the last person she wanted to see. Daniel. His hair was wet, his face flushed, his expression twisted between panic and guilt as he marched toward her like a storm exploding inward. "Where is she?" he demanded. "Where's Lily?" She stiffened, unable to believe he had the audacity to show up after throwing them into the rain. "You did this," she whispered, her voice trembling. "You threw your sick child out. You don't get to ask anything." He tried to argue, to apologize, saying he acted out of stress, that he didn't mean it, but his words meant nothing now. Just then a nurse walked up and asked Mia to sign additional authorization forms. Daniel stepped forward as if he still had the right to speak for them, but the nurse looked at Mia first, sensing the tension. "Only her mother is required," she said gently. Daniel's jaw tightened, his pride bruised, but he stepped back. For the first time, Mia saw him clearly not as her husband, but as a man whose anger mattered more to him than their child's life. A man she could no longer trust. She walked away from him, shoulders squared, and for the first time since the night began she felt something unfamiliar rising in her chest, not fear, not grief, but strength. Strength she didn't know she had, and she would need it, because she had no idea that the truth was about to explode even bigger than the $50 billion secret she carried. Mia walked slowly back to the waiting area, feeling the weight of the night sitting heavily on her shoulders. But something inside her had shifted, like a steel spine forming where fear once lived. And as she sat down again, Daniel hovered near her, unsure if he should approach, his guilt hanging like fog around him, but she didn't spare him a glance because all her focus was on Lily, and the contract that now tied her future to something far larger than anything she ever imagined. The hospital hall felt strangely quiet in that moment, broken only by distant beeping monitors and murmured voices of late-night staff, and Mia stared at her phone screen, rereading the confirmation email again and again, almost afraid the number would change or disappear. She barely noticed when a tall man in an expensive charcoal suit stepped into the hallway, scanning the area before locking his eyes onto her with a purposeful stride. His presence stood out immediately: authority, importance, and something familiar in his posture that told her she had seen him during the earlier meeting but didn't know his name. He walked directly up to her, ignoring Daniel, who straightened like a threatened watchdog. "Ms. Carter," the man asked gently, and she nodded, confused. "My name is Victor Hale. I'm the executive director overseeing your contract. We received your signature, and the board insisted someone come immediately to congratulate you, and to ensure your safety." She blinked. "My safety?" Victor nodded once and lowered his voice. "You may not know how valuable your invention is yet. 50 billion is only the opening figure. After the global rollout, projections estimate this could reach over 100 billion in long-term value. That makes you a high-priority asset. And when you didn't respond to our follow-up call, we grew concerned." Daniel's eyes widened, filled with shock and something uglier: greed mixed with regret. But Mia didn't look at him long because the full implication of Victor's words struck her harder than the rain earlier. She had been sleeping steps away from danger without realizing it. Victor continued, "We understand you have a daughter who is ill. The company has already arranged immediate medical support. A private pediatric specialist is on the way, and all treatment expenses from this point forward will be fully covered." Mia's breath caught, her hand instinctively gripping the arm of the chair as tears filled her eyes. This couldn't be real, yet everything was happening so quickly she no longer doubted any of it. Daniel, meanwhile, stepped forward like he had swallowed his own shame. "I'm her husband," he said, voice suddenly full of false authority. "I should be involved in any decisions." Victor's eyes sharpened instantly. "Our contract is exclusively with Miss Carter. All decisions rest with her alone." Daniel opened his mouth to protest, but Victor didn't allow room for argument. "And I was informed of your behavior tonight." His gaze turned icy. "You endangered a sick child. That is something we take extremely seriously." The humiliation on Daniel's face deepened, and for a brief moment Mia almost pitied him, until she remembered Lily shivering in the rain. She stood, squared her shoulders, and faced him fully. "You threw us out," she said, voice steady. "You made your decision. Now I'm making mine." Before Daniel could respond, a nurse rushed out with relief in her expression. "Ms. Cott, Lily's responding to treatment. Her fever is lowering, and the specialist will handle the next steps when they arrive. You can see her now." Mia followed the nurse quickly, Victor staying respectfully behind her, while Daniel hesitated before trailing after them like a shadow unwanted by everyone. When Mia entered Lily's room, she felt her heart unfold. The little girl lay peacefully, her breathing calmer, her tiny hand resting atop the blanket. Mia stroked her daughter's curls gently, whispering, "Mommy's here. Baby, you're safe." Victor stood at the doorway, quiet, letting her have the moment before he spoke again. "Ms. Carter, your work will change millions of lives. We want to protect Datanju." He handed her a sleek folder. "Inside is the full support package. A new residence prepared for you and Lily. Private security, a company chauffeur if needed, and emergency medical access." Mia stared at him, overwhelmed. "I don't know what to say." "Say you'll focus on your daughter," Victor replied kindly. "We'll handle the rest." But before she could respond, Daniel finally stepped inside the room, eyes red, posture crumbling. "Mia, please," he whispered. "I was wrong. I didn't mean anything," I said. "I was stressed. Please don't do this. I'm still your husband." She looked at him for a long moment, feeling the echo of everything she once hoped he would be. But the reality of who he chose to be tonight rose louder than any memory. You threw us out, she said again, softer this time, but heavy with truth. Lily could have died. Stress doesn't excuse cruelty, and love shouldn't disappear in the rain. He tried to step closer, but Victor positioned himself calmly between them. Daniel looked like a man watching his world fall apart, yet he had no one to blame but himself. Mia took one last breath and made the decision she had been avoiding for years. I'm filing for divorce, she said quietly, and you will not come near me or Lily again unless it's through legal channels. Daniel's face collapsed. He opened his mouth to argue, but Mia had already turned back to Lily, making it clear the conversation was over. Victor motioned discreetly to security outside, and 2 officers approached Daniel, guiding him gently out of the room as he protested weakly, realizing too late what his rage had cost him. Once he was gone, the room finally felt peaceful. Mia sat at Lily's bedside, holding her small hand, feeling everything in her body settle for the first time in months. No fear, no anxiety, only the hum of possibility. Hours passed, and dawn began to rise slowly, filling the room with pale gold light. Lily stirred awake, blinking her big, gentle eyes. Mommy, she whispered, are we okay now? Tears escaped Mia's eyes. She kissed her daughter's forehead. Yes, baby, she answered. We're more than okay. Later that morning, after Lily was fully stabilized, Victor returned with final instructions and a car waiting outside to take them to their new home. As Mia carried Lily through the hospital doors, she felt the world look different, brighter, wider, and finally safe. She looked back once, not at Daniel, not at the past, but at the life she almost lost. Then she stepped into the waiting car, holding her daughter close, embracing the future she had earned with her brilliance, resilience, and love. And as the car pulled away, the rising sun painted the sky with fiery gold, a quiet promise of everything beginning anew.